The rain hit the pavement like bullets as Maya Harrison stood outside the Chicago townhouse she'd called home for 3 years, her 6-month pregnant belly pressed against her thin coat. Her hand trembled as she clutched the envelope containing divorce papers that Marcus had thrust at her 20 minutes ago, his face cold as winter steel. "Please," she'd begged, water already soaking through her clothes. "Marcus, I'm pregnant. It's freezing. Just let me get my things." But Marcus had already closed the door, and through the frosted glass she could see Sienna, blonde, 24, and everything Maya apparently wasn't, wrapping her arms around Maya's husband's neck. The same neck Maya had kissed that morning before he left for his real estate development firm. The same neck she'd pressed her face against when she'd told him about the baby 3 months ago, believing his smile had been genuine. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Marcus's text was short, brutal. "The locks are changed. My lawyer will contact you about the settlement. Don't embarrass yourself by making a scene." Maya's knees buckled, and she caught herself against the iron railing that lined his front steps. 6 months pregnant, standing in a November rainstorm with nowhere to go, and $300 in her checking account because she'd quit her gallery curator job when Marcus insisted they needed to focus on starting their family. He'd promised to take care of everything. He'd promised forever. But Marcus Harrison's promises, she was learning, meant nothing. A black Mercedes pulled up to the curb, its headlights cutting through the rain. Maya's heart jumped. Maybe Marcus had changed his mind. Maybe this was all some cruel joke. But when the door opened, it wasn't Marcus who stepped out. Julian Harrison emerged from the driver's seat, 6'3" of controlled fury, wrapped in a Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than Maya's wedding had. His dark skin glistened with rain as he strode toward her, his expression unreadable except for the tightness in his jaw that Maya had learned to recognize as barely contained rage. "Get in the car, Maya," he said quietly, his voice carrying the authority that came from running a $400 million private equity firm before he turned 35. "Julian, I can handle now." His hand was gentle on her elbow, but his tone left no room for argument. "Before you catch pneumonia, and my nephew ends up paying for his father's stupidity." Maya's vision blurred with tears as Julian guided her to the Mercedes, opening the passenger door and helping her inside with a carefulness that contrasted sharply with Marcus's dismissal. The car's warmth enveloped her like a blanket, and she started shaking. Not from cold, but from the delayed shock of what had just happened. Julian slid into the driver's seat and immediately cranked up the heat, pulling a cashmere throw from the back seat and draping it over her shoulders. "How long were you standing out there?" "I don't know. 20 minutes, maybe 30. Maya pulled the blanket tighter, her teeth chattering. He said he needed time to think. That Sienna made him realize what he'd been missing. That I'd let myself go, and he couldn't do this anymore. Julian's hands tightened on the steering wheel until his knuckles went pale. "Did he touch you? Hurt you physically?" "No. He handed me the papers and told me to leave. Sienna was there, Julian. She was there, in our house, wearing my robe, drinking from my favorite mug." Maya's voice cracked. "She laughed when I asked if I could at least pack some clothes." "Jesus Christ." Julian pulled out his phone and sent a rapid-fire text, his thumbs moving with practiced efficiency. Within seconds, responses started coming in, his phone vibrating repeatedly against the center console. "What are you doing?" Maya asked. "Calling in the family." Julian's smile was sharp, dangerous. Marcus Harrison just made the biggest mistake of his pathetic life. He doesn't know it yet. But by tomorrow morning, He's going to wish he'd shown you the respect you deserved. Maya felt something stir in her chest. Not quite hope, but close. The Harrison brothers were legendary in Chicago's black business community. Julian ran Harrison Capital with an iron fist and a genius for identifying undervalued companies. Dante owned Harrison Development Group, controlling millions of square feet of commercial real estate across the Midwest. Isaiah had built Harrison Security Solutions into the premier corporate protection firm in the country. And Marcus had always been the odd one out. The youngest brother who'd never quite measured up, who'd chosen real estate sales over the family businesses, who'd spent the last 5 years trying to prove he didn't need his brother's help or approval. But Maya had married Marcus anyway, believing his drive to forge his own path was admirable rather than foolish. She'd believed him when he said his brothers were too controlling, too demanding, too focused on legacy instead of living. She'd believed everything he told her, and now she was paying the price. "Julian, he signed the papers already," Maya said softly. "His lawyer prepared everything. I saw the date. He's been planning this for weeks." "Then we'll make sure he regrets every second of planning." Julian pulled away from the curb, heading toward the Gold Coast where his penthouse overlooked Lake Michigan. "Did he mention anything about the prenup?" Maya's stomach dropped. "What prenup?" Julian's expression darkened. "The one our father insisted on when Marcus told us he was getting married. The one that protects your assets in case of divorce, ensures you get half of everything accumulated during the marriage, and—" He stopped, his jaw working. "Marcus told you he signed it, Maya. He showed me the paperwork himself." "I never saw a prenup," Maya whispered. "Marcus said we didn't need one. That prenups were for people who didn't trust each other, and he trusted me completely." The silence in the car was deafening. Julian's phone rang, and he answered on speaker. "Tell me you got her." Dante's voice rumbled through the speakers, deep and commanding. At 37, Dante Harrison was the eldest brother and the closest thing the family had to a patriarch since their father's death 2 years ago. "She's with me. Soaked, freezing, and 6 months pregnant. Marcus threw her out in the rain." Julian's voice was flat, emotionless, which Maya knew meant he was absolutely furious. Dante's response was a string of profanity creative enough to make Maya's eyes widen despite her misery. "Where is he now?" "At the townhouse with his girlfriend. Sienna something. 24 years old, blonde, and apparently worth destroying his marriage over." "Isaiah's already on it," a new voice interjected. "Isaiah Harrison, at 33, the youngest brother after Marcus. I've got 2 of my best people watching the house. They won't sneeze without me knowing about it." Maya felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry. I know you all warned me about Marcus, about how he could be. I should have listened." "Stop." Dante's voice softened slightly. "This isn't on you, Maya. This is on our brother being a selfish, short-sighted fool. But we're going to fix this. Julian, bring her to my house. Amara's already making up the guest suite." "Copy that." Julian disconnected and glanced at Maya. "You okay if we head to Dante's? Amara will fuss, but she means well." Maya nodded, too exhausted to protest. Dante's wife, Amara, was a force of nature, a successful architect who'd designed half the high-rises downtown and somehow still found time to mother everyone who crossed her path. Right now, Maya needed mothering more than she needed pride. The drive to Dante's Kenwood mansion took 30 minutes through rain-slicked streets. Maya dozed fitfully, her hand resting on her belly where the baby, a boy she'd learned at her last ultrasound, kicked occasionally as if sensing her distress. When they pulled into Dante's circular driveway, Amara was already at the door, her natural hair wrapped in a silk scarf and her face creased with concern. She pulled Maya into a hug the moment Julian helped her from the car, not caring that Maya was still dripping wet. "Come inside, baby. Let's get you warm and dry." Amara guided Maya through the marble foyer and up the sweeping staircase to a guest suite that was larger than the entire townhouse Maya had shared with Marcus. "I've got the bath running, and I set out some of my maternity clothes from when I was pregnant with DJ. They might be a little big, but they're comfortable." Maya's throat tightened. "Amara, you don't have to Hush. You're family, Maya. You've been family since the day you married into this clan, and nothing Marcus does changes that." Amara's dark eyes flashed with anger. "Now get in that bath before you catch your death, and then we're going to feed you and that baby properly. When's the last time you ate?" Maya tried to remember. "Breakfast, I think. Marcus and I were supposed to have dinner together. But then he came home early with Sienna and—" Amara muttered something in Tigrinya that Maya suspected was exceptionally unflattering. "Bath. Now. I'll bring you soup and bread, and tomorrow we're going to figure out our next move." Alone in the bathroom, Maya sank into water, hot enough to turn her skin pink, and finally let herself fall apart. The sobs came hard and fast, echoing off the Italian marble, as she mourned not just her marriage, but the future she'd imagined. The family dinners with Marcus and their son. The Christmases decorating their tree together. Growing old side by side, watching their children grow. All of it. Gone. Destroyed by a man who'd decided his pregnant wife was disposable. But as Maya's tears finally slowed and she felt her baby moving inside her, something else began to replace the grief. Something harder, colder. Marcus had thrown her away, like she meant nothing. Like their 3 years together had been an inconvenience he could simply discard. He'd forgotten one crucial detail, though. Maya Harrison wasn't just the woman he'd married. She was the sister-in-law of 3 of Chicago's most powerful black businessmen, and the Harrison brothers protected their own. Downstairs in Dante's study, the 3 brothers sat in heavy silence, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Dante occupied his usual leather chair behind a desk that had belonged to their grandfather, while Julian paced like a caged predator and Isaiah stood by the window, his arms crossed and his expression unreadable. "I want to know everything," Dante said finally. "Every detail about Marcus's business, his finances, his relationship with this Sienna woman." "Isaiah?" Isaiah pulled out his phone, scrolling through information his team had already compiled. Sienna Bradford, 24, works as a receptionist at Marcus's real estate office. They've been seeing each other for approximately 8 months, based on hotel records and credit card statements. Marcus has been using their joint account with Maya to fund the affair. Expensive dinners, weekend trips, jewelry purchases. Julian stopped pacing. He used her money to cheat on her? Technically their money, but yes. Isaiah's voice was grim. Gets worse. Marcus liquidated Maya's retirement account 3 months ago without her knowledge. Forged her signature on the paperwork. Dante's expression went deadly calm. "That's fraud." "And identity theft," Isaiah confirmed. "I've got the documentation." The account held approximately $45,000 savings Maya had accumulated before the marriage from her gallery work. "What else?" Dante asked. "The townhouse is in Marcus's name only, purchased before the marriage. He's been telling Maya they own it jointly, but she has no legal claim to the property. The cars are leased in his name. The bank accounts are all controlled by him. She's completely financially isolated." Isaiah's jaw tightened. set this up deliberately, Dante. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. He's been planning to discard her for months. Julian slammed his fist against the wall hard enough to rattle the artwork. I'm going to destroy him. Get in line, Dante replied coldly. What about his business? How's Marcus Real Estate Holdings actually doing? Isaiah pulled up another file. On paper? Great. Revenue up 20%, 3 major commercial deals pending, solid client base. But dig deeper, and it's smoke and mirrors. He's overextended on almost every property, taking on debt he can't service, making promises to investors he can't keep. I'd estimate he's got maybe 6 months before everything collapses. Unless someone speeds up that timeline, Julian said quietly. Dante looked at his brother. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Marcus just threw away the best thing that ever happened to him, and he needs to understand the consequences. Julian's smile was sharp. Harrison Capital has significant holdings in commercial real estate financing. I'd hate for Marcus's credit lines to suddenly dry up right when he needs them most. And Harrison Development Group controls several properties that Marcus currently manages, Dante added thoughtfully. Be a shame if we decided to move those accounts to a different firm. Isaiah's phone buzzed. My people just confirmed. Marcus and Sienna are celebrating at Gibson's. Champagne, expensive steaks, the works. He's telling anyone who'll listen that he finally escaped his ball and chain and can start living his real life. The silence that followed was murderous. Tomorrow, Dante said finally, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. We start dismantling everything Marcus Harrison has built. By the time we're done, he'll wish he'd shown Maya the respect she deserved. What about the prenup he claimed to sign? Julian asked. Never existed. I checked with Dad's lawyer. Marcus told us he'd handled it, but there's no record of anything being filed. Dante's expression was grim. Which means Maya is entitled to half of everything accumulated during the marriage under Illinois law, including his share of the real estate business. He doesn't know that, does he? Isaiah's smile was predatory. Not yet. Dante stood, moving to the window that overlooked his perfectly manicured grounds. Let him enjoy tonight. Let him think he's won. Because starting tomorrow, Marcus is going to learn what happens when you cross the Harrison family. Upstairs, Maya emerged from her bath to find Amara waiting with a tray of soup, fresh bread, and herbal tea. She'd also laid out soft pajamas and thick socks, treating Maya with a gentleness that made her want to cry all over again. Thank you, Maya whispered, settling into the plush bed. For everything. I know this isn't what you signed up for when Dante married into this family. Amara laughed, the sound warm and rich. Baby, I signed up for the whole Harrison package. Good, bad, and occasionally catastrophic. Besides, you've been there for me more times than I can count. Remember when I had DJ and thought I was losing my mind from sleep deprivation? You came to my apartment at 3 a.m. with him screaming, Maya remembered. Marcus was furious. Marcus is an idiot. Amara's voice hardened. He always has been, and I tried to tell you before the wedding. But you were so in love. I was stupid. You were hopeful. There's a difference. Amara sat on the edge of the bed. Maya, I need you to understand something. What's about to happen? What Dante and his brothers are planning. It's going to be intense. They're going to go after Marcus with everything they have. Are you okay with that? Maya thought about standing in the rain, pregnant and abandoned. About Marcus's cold eyes and Sienna's cruel laughter. About 3 years of making herself smaller, quieter, more accommodating, trying to be the wife Marcus wanted instead of the woman she was. I'm not just okay with it, Maya said softly. I want to help. Amara's smile was fierce. Good. Because tomorrow, we're going to remind Marcus Harrison that you don't throw away a queen and expect to keep your kingdom. The next morning dawned cold and clear, sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Dante's guest suite. Maya woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of male voices downstairs. Not angry, but purposeful. The kind of controlled intensity that meant the Harrison brothers were in planning mode. She dressed in the maternity clothes Amara had provided, designer pieces that fit perfectly and made her feel almost human again. In the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The woman staring back had shadows under her eyes and a hardness in her expression that hadn't been there yesterday. Good, she thought. Soft Maya had gotten her thrown out in the rain. Hard Maya was going to make sure it never happened again. Downstairs, she found all three brothers gathered around Dante's dining table. Laptops open, phones buzzing, papers spread across the mahogany surface like battle plans. They looked up when she entered, and she saw the flash of concern cross their faces before they schooled their expressions into something more neutral. "How are you feeling?" Dante asked, pulling out a chair for her. "Angry," Maya said honestly, "and ready to fight back." Julian's smile was approving. "Good, because we've got a strategy, but it requires your cooperation and your strength. You up for this? Tell me what you need." For the next hour, the brothers laid out their plan with military precision. Julian would use Harrison Capital's influence to cut off Marcus's credit lines, forcing him to either sell assets at a loss or default on his loans. Dante would redirect the management contracts Harrison Development had with Marcus's firm to competitors, removing a significant portion of his revenue. Isaiah would use his security firm's connections to ensure that every shady deal, every corner Marcus had cut, every promise he'd broken would come to light. "But here's the thing," Dante said, leaning back in his chair. "We can hurt him financially, professionally, reputationally. We can make his life very difficult. But the real power here is yours, Maya." "What do you mean?" "Illinois is an equitable distribution state," Julian explained. "Without a prenup, you're entitled to half of everything accumulated during your marriage. That includes his share of the real estate business, his assets, his investments, everything." Maya's breath caught. "How much are we talking about?" "Conservatively? Around $3 million in liquid assets, plus his share of the business, which is probably worth another $2 million. Isaiah pulled up a spreadsheet. "But here's where it gets interesting. Marcus has been committing fraud. The retirement account he stole from you, the forged signatures, the use of marital funds for his affair. We have documentation of all of it. Which means," Dante continued, "you could sue him not just for divorce, but for fraud, identity theft, and financial abuse. You could take him for everything he has and possibly get him criminally charged." Maya felt her baby kick, as if he approved of the plan. "What do you need me to do?" "First, we need you to meet with our family attorney, Richard Chen. Best divorce lawyer in Chicago, completely ruthless. And he owes us several favors." Dante checked his watch. "He's coming here in an hour to go over your options." "Second," Julian added, "we need you to file a police report about the retirement account fraud. The more documentation we have of Marcus's behavior, the stronger your position becomes. And third," Isaiah said quietly, "we need you to be prepared for Marcus to fight back. When he realizes what he's losing, he's going to get ugly. He might try to manipulate you, threaten you, play on your emotions. You need to stay strong." Maya thought about the man she'd married. Charming, attentive Marcus, who'd swept her off her feet with grand gestures and promises of forever. That man had been a carefully constructed facade. The real Marcus was the one who'd thrown her out pregnant, stolen her money, and laughed while his girlfriend mocked her. "I can handle Marcus," she said firmly. "What I need to know is, will this hurt you? Your businesses? Your reputations? Marcus is still your brother." The three men exchanged glances. Finally, Dante spoke, his voice heavy with regret and resolve. "Marcus stopped being our brother the moment he put his hands on you and threw you out. Family protects family, Maya. And right now, you and that baby you're carrying are the family that matters." "What he said," Julian agreed. "Besides, Marcus has been playing fast and loose with ethics for years. It was only a matter of time before it caught up with him. We're just expediting the process." Isaiah's phone buzzed. "Marcus just arrived at his office. My people say he looks smug. That won't last long." 2 hours later, Maya sat in Dante's study across from Richard Chen, a sharp-eyed man in his 50s who radiated competence and controlled aggression. He'd spent the first hour asking questions, taking notes, and occasionally making sounds of professional outrage that suggested he was personally offended by Marcus's behavior. "Mrs. Harrison," he said finally, setting down his pen, "I'm going to be blunt with you. Your husband is an idiot, and his attorney, whoever he hired, is either incompetent or deliberately trying to sabotage him. The divorce papers he gave you are so poorly constructed that I could drive a truck through the loopholes." "What does that mean?" Maya asked. "It means Marcus assumed you'd just sign them without legal representation. He's offered you essentially nothing. No spousal support, no share of marital assets, nothing except reasonable child support to be determined later." Richard's expression was grim. "In Illinois law, that's not just offensive, it's laughable. Especially given what the Harrison brothers have uncovered about his financial misconduct. So, what should I do?" "Don't sign anything Marcus gives you. Instead, we file first. A petition for legal separation with full financial disclosure requirements, an emergency request for spousal support given your pregnancy and unemployment, and a separate lawsuit for fraud related to your retirement account." Richard pulled out his tablet, showing her a document. "I took the liberty of drafting everything this morning. With your permission, we can file today." Maya read through the petition, her heart pounding. It was thorough, detailed, and damning, laying out Marcus's affair, his financial abuse, his abandonment of his pregnant wife. Seeing it all in legal language made it feel real in a way it hadn't before. "File it," she said. Richard smiled. "Excellent. Now, there's one more thing we need to discuss. The Harrison brothers have offered to cover all your legal fees and living expenses during the divorce proceedings. I need you to understand that this gives them no claim on your settlement. This is a family gift, not a loan." "I can't accept that," Maya protested. "It's too much." "You can, and you will," Dante said from the doorway. "Maya, you're carrying my nephew. Your family. Let us help you. But Marcus will say I'm using your money to attack him. Let him say whatever he wants." Julian appeared behind Dante. "We're not financing your divorce, Maya. We're providing for family while one of our own going through a crisis. There's a difference." Isaiah was the last to enter, his expression darker than usual. "We've got a problem. Marcus just posted to social media." He held up his phone, showing a Facebook post from Marcus's account. The image showed him and Sienna at Gibson's Steakhouse, champagne, glasses raised, both grinning at the camera. The caption read, "Finally free to live my truth." Sometimes you have to leave behind the wrong person to find your soulmate. New beginnings. No regrets. The comments were already flooding in. Congratulations, supportive messages, people who had no idea what Marcus had done to earn his freedom. Maya felt her hands shake, and Amara appeared at her elbow with a glass of water and a steadying presence. Don't read the comments, baby. People don't know the truth. Then maybe it's time they learned it, Maya said quietly. Richard Chen looked up sharply. Mrs. Harrison, I'd advise against posting anything on social media right now. Anything you say can and will be used in court. I'm not talking about social media, Maya replied, an idea forming. I'm talking about the truth, the whole truth, documented and undeniable. She looked at Julian. You said you have evidence of Marcus's fraud. The retirement account, the forged signatures, everything? Complete documentation. And Isaiah, your people have been tracking his affair, the expenses he charged to our joint account? Every dinner, every hotel room, every piece of jewelry he bought her with your money, Isaiah confirmed. Maya turned to Dante. What would happen if all of that became public? Not just filed in court where it might get buried in legal proceedings, but actually public? Dante's expression grew speculative. His reputation would be destroyed. No one would want to do business with a man who defrauds his pregnant wife. His partners would distance themselves. His clients would flee. His whole carefully constructed image would collapse. But, Richard interjected, it could also make him more dangerous. Desperate men do desperate things. He's already dangerous, Maya said softly. He stole my money, threw me out pregnant, and is now parading his affair on social media while pretending to be the victim. What's he going to do? Throw me out twice? The brothers were quiet for a moment. Then Julian started to smile, slow and dangerous. You want to go nuclear? I want him to face consequences, Maya corrected. Real consequences, not just losing some money in a divorce settlement. I want everyone to know exactly who Marcus Harrison is and what he's capable of. I love this energy, Amara said. But maybe we should think about this strategically. You're 6 months pregnant, Maya. You need to conserve your strength for the baby. Which is exactly why I need to do this now, Maya replied. Before I'm too pregnant to fight back, before Marcus can construct more lies, before that baby arrives and I'm too exhausted to care. I need to strike while I still have the energy and the righteous anger to see it through. Dante exchanged glances with his brothers. If we're doing this, we do it right. Coordinated, devastating, and absolutely airtight legally. Richard, what are our options? The lawyer was quiet for a moment, clearly weighing professional ethics against personal outrage. Finally, he sighed. There is a way. We file everything. The divorce petition, the fraud lawsuit, the police report, all at once, all public record. We make sure certain journalists who cover business and society news get copies of the filing. We let the facts speak for themselves. And when Marcus tries to spin it, Maya asked. We have our own statement ready, Isaiah said. Professional, factual, devastating, no mudslinging, no emotion, just the documented truth of what he did. Maya felt her baby move, a strong kick that felt almost like encouragement. She thought about the life growing inside her, about the kind of father Marcus would be if he faced no consequences for his actions. She thought about other women who might fall for his charm, not knowing the cruelty underneath. Do it, she said. All of it. I want Marcus Harrison to understand that actions have consequences, even when you're used to skating by on charm and family connections. You're sure? Dante asked gently. Once we start this, there's no going back. It's going to get ugly. Maya looked at each of them. These men who'd welcomed her into their family, who'd tried to warn her about Marcus's flaws, who were now ready to go to war for her. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Then let's show Marcus what happens, Julian said, his smile sharp as a blade, when you underestimate a Harrison woman. The next 72 hours moved with the precision of a military operation. Richard Chen filed the divorce petition at 9 a.m. Monday morning, followed immediately by the fraud lawsuit and police report. By 10 a.m., copies had been delivered to every major business publication in Chicago. By noon, the story was breaking across social media. Maya watched it unfold from the safety of Dante's home office, her brothers-in-law surrounding her like an honor guard. The headlines started appearing. Real estate developer accused of defrauding pregnant wife. Harrison brother faces fraud charges after abandoning wife society divorce. Marcus Harrison's fall from grace. The details were damning. The forged signatures, the stolen retirement account, the use of marital funds to finance an 8-month affair. Reporters dug deeper, finding the social media posts Marcus had made celebrating his freedom. The photos of him and Sienna at expensive restaurants charged to the joint account he shared with Maya. Public opinion turned savage. Marcus's phone, according to Isaiah's sources, was ringing constantly. Clients demanding answers, business partners distancing themselves, friends who'd congratulated him on his new beginning, now scrambling to delete their supportive comments. By Tuesday afternoon, Marcus's carefully constructed life was in free fall. 3 major clients had pulled their listings. His business partners were calling emergency meetings. The bank was asking questions about his loan applications. And Sienna, according to Isaiah's surveillance team, had stopped answering his calls. He's coming undone, Isaiah reported, checking his phone. My people say he's been at the office since 6 this morning, making calls, trying to do damage control. It's not working. Good, Maya said, though the satisfaction felt hollow. She'd thought revenge would taste sweeter, but mostly she just felt tired and sad. Amara squeezed her shoulder. Second thoughts? No, just, I married him, you know? I loved him. And now I'm watching him destroy himself because he couldn't just be a decent person. Maya sighed. It's not satisfying, it's just necessary. Wednesday brought the first direct contact from Marcus. His attorney, a nervous young man who'd clearly been hired on the cheap, sent a letter to Richard Chen's office requesting a settlement conference. The tone was conciliatory, almost desperate, offering far more than the original divorce papers had proposed. He's scared, Richard said, reading the letter aloud in Dante's study. He wants this over before more damage is done to his reputation. What's he offering? Maya asked. Full split of marital assets, reasonable spousal support, and dropping all claims to any separate property you might have. Richard looked up. It's actually a fairly generous offer, considering. It's an insult, Julian countered. He stole from her, threw her out pregnant, and now he thinks writing a check makes it okay? What about the fraud charges? Maya asked quietly. Richard's expression was grim. He wants you to drop them as part of the settlement. Says it would be best for everyone, especially the baby, if this doesn't become a criminal matter. The baby. Always the baby, as if Marcus suddenly cared about their child now that his reputation was on the line. No, Maya said firmly. The fraud charges stand. He needs to face legal consequences for what he did, not just write a check and walk away. That's going to complicate things, Richard warned. The district attorney might not pursue the case if you settle the civil matters. They often defer to the victim's wishes in these situations. Then I'll make sure they know my wishes are for him to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Maya felt her baby kick hard. He stole $45,000 from me by forging my signature. That's not a marital dispute. That's a crime. Dante nodded approvingly. What else does he want? Joint custody when the baby's born, his name on the birth certificate, and weekly supervised visitation starting immediately after delivery. Richard set down the letter. He's also requesting that Maya refrain from making any public statements about the divorce or their marriage. Absolutely not, Isaiah said. He gets to trash her on social media, but she has to stay silent? That's not happening. Maya's phone buzzed, a number she didn't recognize. Against her better judgment, she answered. Maya. Marcus's voice was strained, desperate in a way she'd never heard before. Please, we need to talk. This has gotten completely out of hand. I have nothing to say to you, Marcus. Talk to my lawyer. Your lawyer? You mean my brother's lawyer? The one they're paying to destroy me? His voice rose. Do you have any idea what you've done? My business is collapsing, Maya. Everything I built, everything I worked for. You mean everything you lied for, cheated for, stole for? Maya's voice was cold. I know exactly what I've done, Marcus. I've held you accountable. I made a mistake, okay? I admit it. I shouldn't have handled things the way I did with Sienna. But did you have to destroy my entire life? Did you have to turn my own brothers against me? I didn't turn anyone against you. You did that yourself when you threw your pregnant wife out in the rain. Maya felt tears threatening but pushed them back. And this isn't about a mistake, Marcus. You planned this. You stole my money months ago. You've been with Sienna for 8 months. You deliberately isolated me financially so I'd have nowhere to go when you decided to trade up. That's not... I never meant... Marcus's voice cracked. Please, Maya, I'm begging you. Drop the charges. Accept the settlement. Let's end this before it gets worse. It got worse the moment you chose cruelty over kindness, Maya replied. Goodbye, Marcus. She disconnected before he could respond, her hands shaking. Dante gently took the phone from her and handed it to Isaiah. Block that number. He contacts her again. We consider it harassment and file for a restraining order. Already on it, Isaiah confirmed. That night, unable to sleep, Maya stood by the window in Dante's guest room and watched the city lights sparkle across the lake. Behind her, she heard a soft knock. Can't sleep either. Amara entered carrying 2 mugs of herbal tea. I saw your light on. I keep thinking about what Marcus said, Maya admitted, about destroying his life. Part of me wonders if I went too far. Amara handed her a mug and settled into the window seat beside her. Did you forge his signature to steal his money? No. Did you throw him out of his home while he was vulnerable and pregnant? No. Did you use his money to finance an affair and then mock him when he found out? Of course not. Then you didn't destroy his life, Maya. You just stopped protecting him from the consequences of his own actions. Amara sipped her tea. The Harrison brothers have a saying. We take care of our own, but we don't take care of grown men who should know better. Marcus is a grown man. He made his choices. Now he gets to live with them. Sienna left him, Maya said quietly. Isaiah's people told me. She moved out of the townhouse yesterday. Apparently being with a man facing fraud charges and business failure wasn't as appealing as being with a successful real estate developer. Shocking, Amara said dryly. It's almost like she was with him for the money and status, not love. Like he accused me of being with his brother's money? The difference being you walked away from a fortune to marry him because you loved him, while she walked toward a fortune and away the moment it disappeared. Amara squeezed Maya's hand. That man is getting exactly what he deserves. Don't waste your sympathy on him. Maya felt her baby kick, and Amara's eyes lit up. Can I feel? Of course. Maya guided Amara's hand to where her son was doing gymnastics against her rib cage. He's strong, Amara said softly, just like his mama. I don't feel strong. I feel tired and sad and angry all at once. That's what strength looks like sometimes. Not feeling invincible, just choosing to keep going anyway. Amara's smile was gentle. You're going to be an amazing mother, Maya. That baby is lucky to have you. The next morning brought unexpected news. Richard Chen called an emergency meeting, his expression unreadable as he spread documents across Dante's dining table. Marcus has filed a countersuit, he announced. He's claiming that Maya collaborated with his brothers to deliberately sabotage his business relationships as revenge for the affair. He's seeking damages for lost income and reputational harm. The silence that followed was thunderous. He's suing her? Julian's voice was dangerously quiet. For holding him accountable for fraud? He's suing all of you, actually, Richard corrected. You, Dante, Isaiah, and Maya. He's claiming you used your business positions to orchestrate a conspiracy to destroy him professionally. Dante's laugh was harsh. Is he insane? We didn't destroy him. He destroyed himself. We just made sure people knew the truth. That's our argument exactly, Richard agreed. But I need to warn you, this changes things. Marcus is now positioning himself as the victim of a coordinated attack by powerful siblings who couldn't accept his independence. That's ridiculous, Isaiah said. We have documentation of everything he did, the fraud, the affair, the abandonment. How is he the victim? Because victims sell better than villains, Richard explained. If he can convince people that yes, he made some mistakes, but the punishment is disproportionate to the crime, he might salvage some sympathy. It's a Hail Mary move, but it's not entirely stupid. Maya felt something cold settle in her stomach. He's going to paint me as the scorned woman who weaponized his wealthy brothers against him. That's exactly what he's going to do, Richard confirmed. And I need to know if you're prepared for that fight, because it's going to get nasty. Character witnesses, depositions, possibly a trial. Everything about your marriage will be examined publicly. Maya looked at her brothers-in-law. These men who'd taken her in, protected her, fought for her. Dante with his quiet authority, Julian with his fierce intelligence, Isaiah with his strategic mind. They'd put their own reputations on the line for her. I won't back down, she said firmly. If Marcus wants a fight, he'll get one, but I want to make something clear. If this lawsuit puts you at risk, professionally or personally, I'll settle. I won't let him use me to hurt you. Absolutely not, Dante said immediately. We don't negotiate with manipulators, and we don't abandon family. What Dante said, Julian agreed. Besides, Marcus just made a tactical error. By suing us, he's opened up his entire business for examination and discovery. We're going to learn everything about how he runs his company, who his investors are, what corners he's been cutting. He just gave us the keys to destroy him completely. Isaiah was already on his phone, texting rapidly. I'm pulling together a team. Forensic accountants, investigators, the works. If Marcus wants to claim we sabotaged him, We're going to show exactly how he sabotaged himself long before we got involved. There's one more thing, Richard said carefully. Marcus is requesting a psychological evaluation of Maya as part of his custody claim. He's suggesting that her decision to file fraud charges and speak to the media shows concerning judgment that might affect her ability to parent. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. He's questioning her fitness as a mother? Amara's voice was lethal. That manipulative, abandoning, fraud-committing piece of... We expected this, Richard interrupted calmly. It's a common tactic when one parent is clearly in the wrong. Attack the other parent's character to muddy the waters. We'll counter with our own evaluation, showing that Maya's actions were reasonable responses to legitimate trauma and abuse. This is going to destroy what's left of Marcus's reputation, Dante observed. Challenging the mental health of the pregnant wife he threw out. The optics are catastrophic. Which is probably why his attorney is already trying to walk it back, Richard said, checking his email. I just got a message saying the psychological evaluation request was filed in error and will be withdrawn. Too late, Julian said grimly. The filing is public record. Journalists will see it. Marcus just proved he's exactly as cruel as Maya said he was. And indeed, by that afternoon, the headlines had shifted again. Marcus Harrison questions ex-wife's mental health in custody battle, disgraced developer attacks, character of pregnant wife. New low. Harrison claims mother of his child. Unfit to parent public opinion, which had been harsh before, turned absolutely savage. Even people who'd initially sympathized with Marcus's right to pursue happiness now saw him as a man willing to destroy the mother of his child rather than accept responsibility for his actions. Maya watched the news coverage from Dante's media room, feeling numb. This was her life being dissected on cable news, her marriage being analyzed by strangers, her pain becoming entertainment. Turn it off, she said suddenly. I can't watch anymore. Isaiah immediately switched off the television. You, okay? No, but I will be. Maya stood carefully, her hand on her belly. I need some air. She found herself in Dante's garden, a carefully landscaped oasis in the middle of the city. The November cold bit through her coat, but the sharp air helped clear her head. Behind her, she heard footsteps. Multiple sets, the brothers following to make sure she was okay. You don't have to babysit me, she said without turning around. We're not babysitting, Dante replied, settling onto the bench beside her. We're keeping you company. There's a difference. Julian sat on her other side. Want to talk about it? I knew it would be hard, going after Marcus. I knew he'd fight back, but I didn't expect it to feel this awful. Maya blinked back tears. He's questioning my ability to be a mother. My mental health. Everything about who I am. And part of me wonders if he's right. Stop, Isaiah's voice was firm. Marcus is a liar and a manipulator. Nothing he says about you is true, and you know it. Do I? Because I'm the one who married him, who believed his lies for 3 years, who didn't see what he really was until it was too late. That doesn't make you crazy or unfit, Dante said gently. It makes you human. Maya, you trusted someone who didn't deserve that trust. That's not a character flaw, that's just what happens when good people encounter bad ones. Your mother would be proud of you, Julian added. Standing up for yourself, protecting your child, refusing to be a victim. That's strength, not instability. Maya thought about her mother, gone 5 years now to cancer. She'd been a social worker, dedicating her life to protecting vulnerable people. What would she think of her daughter's very public battle? Mom would have wanted me to fight, Maya said slowly. She always said that the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. Marcus is counting on me to do nothing. To be too ashamed, too tired, too scared to keep pushing back. And are you? Isaiah asked. Maya felt her son move inside her, strong and healthy despite everything. No, I'm done doing nothing. If Marcus wants to question my fitness as a mother, let him. The court-ordered psychological evaluation will show I'm fine. But his evaluation? That's going to be fascinating. Dante's smile was approving. That's my sister-in-law. Welcome back to the fight. That weekend, Maya moved from Dante's guest suite to a furnished apartment Julian had arranged for her. A beautiful 2-bedroom in a secure building with a doorman and underground parking. The Harrison brothers had stocked it with everything she could need. Furniture, kitchen supplies, a fully outfitted nursery. This is too much, Maya protested as Amara showed her the nursery, complete with a hand-carved crib and a rocking chair that probably cost more than Maya's car. It's not enough, Amara countered. Maya, you're 6 months pregnant and starting over from nothing because ex-husband stole everything you had. Let us help you build something better. The apartment became Maya's sanctuary. She spent her days preparing for the baby, attending prenatal appointments, with Amara or one of the brothers always accompanying her, and meeting with Richard Chen to build her case against Marcus. The psychological evaluation came back exactly as predicted. Maya was a healthy woman responding appropriately to trauma, with no signs of instability or impaired judgment. Marcus's evaluation, conducted after he'd tried to withdraw his request but been ordered to proceed anyway, was less favorable. The psychologist noted concerning patterns of narcissistic behavior, difficulty accepting responsibility for his actions, and a tendency to blame others for the consequences of his choices. Richard reported with barely concealed satisfaction. Not exactly the profile of an ideal co-parent. The discovery process for Marcus's countersuit was equally productive. Forensic accountants found evidence of systematic financial mismanagement, questionable business practices, and loans taken against properties he didn't fully own. His business partners, when deposed, described a pattern of overpromising and underdelivering. He's been running his business like a house of cards, Julian explained during one of their strategy sessions. Taking money from new investors to pay off old investors, using client deposits for personal expenses, essentially running a very small-scale Ponzi scheme. Can we prove that? Maya asked. We can prove enough to make life very uncomfortable for him, Isaiah confirmed. Multiple regulatory agencies are now taking a closer look at his operations. Even if the fraud charges related to your retirement account don't stick, he's facing serious professional consequences. And Sienna? Maya asked, curious despite herself. Moved to Los Angeles? Amara reported, scrolling through her phone. Posted on Instagram yesterday from Santa Monica. Comments are full of people calling her a gold digger who abandoned ship. I should feel happy about that, Maya said. But mostly I just feel sad. She's 24 years old and probably doesn't understand yet how much damage she let Marcus do to her reputation. That's the difference between you and her, Dante observed. You have empathy even for people who hurt you. She had none for you when you were standing in the rain, pregnant and abandoned. December arrived with the first snow, coating Chicago in white that made everything look clean and new. Maya was 7 months pregnant now, her belly huge and her movements increasingly awkward. But she felt stronger than she had in months, maybe years. The settlement conference was scheduled for mid-December, both sides gathering in Richard Chen's conference room to try to reach an agreement before the case went to trial. Maya sat between Richard and Julian, with Dante and Isaiah flanking them like bodyguards. Marcus arrived with his attorney, He'd upgraded from the nervous young man to someone with actual experience, though the lawyer's expression suggested he knew exactly how weak his client's position was. Maya hadn't seen Marcus in person since the night he'd thrown her out. He looked terrible, thinner, with dark circles under his eyes and the kind of desperate exhaustion that came from weeks of fighting losing battles. When their eyes met, she saw something that might have been regret or might just have been self-pity. "Thank you all for coming," Richard began formally. "We're here to discuss potential settlement terms for both the divorce proceedings and Mr. Harrison's countersuit. Mr. Harrison, your attorney indicated you have an offer?" Marcus's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Rodriguez, pulled out documents. "My client is willing to drop his countersuit entirely and accept full responsibility for the dissolution of the marriage. In exchange, he asks that Mrs. Harrison drop the fraud charges and accept a settlement of $1.5 million plus reasonable child support." "That's the offer?" Julian's voice was incredulous. "He commits fraud, abandons his pregnant wife, tries to destroy her reputation, and he thinks $1.5 million makes it okay?" "It's more than the marital assets would yield in a standard divorce," Patricia countered. "My client is being generous." "Your client is being desperate," Dante corrected. "Let's discuss what's really happening here. Marcus is facing multiple investigations, his business is collapsing, and he's trying to buy his way out of criminal prosecution. That's not generosity. That's panic." Marcus flinched, but said nothing. Richard leaned forward. "Here's our counteroffer. Mrs. Harrison receives her full half of marital assets, approximately $2.5 million based on current valuations. She receives spousal support of $10,000 monthly for 3 years. She receives full legal and physical custody of the child, with Marcus getting supervised visitation pending completion of parenting classes and therapy." "That's ridiculous," Patricia protested. "You're trying to cut my client out of his own child's life." "Your client threw that child's mother out of her home while she was 6 months pregnant," Richard replied calmly. "The supervised visitation is a compromise. We could argue for no visitation at all based on his demonstrated inability to prioritize the child's well-being." "And the fraud charges?" Patricia asked. "Non-negotiable," Maya said, speaking for the first time. "Marcus forged my signature to steal my retirement savings. That's a crime, and I won't pretend it didn't happen just to make him more comfortable." Marcus finally looked directly at her. "Maya, please. I'm sorry, okay? I'm so sorry for everything. I was stupid and selfish, and I hurt you terribly. But please don't send me to prison. Please." "I'm not sending you anywhere," Maya replied quietly. "Your choices are sending you there. I'm just refusing to protect you from the consequences anymore. What about our baby? You want him to grow up with a father in prison?" "I want him to grow up knowing that actions have consequences, even when you're rich and charming and used to getting away with things." Maya's hand rested on her belly. "And I want him to see his mother standing up for herself instead of accepting abuse to keep the peace." "I never abused you," Marcus protested. "You stole my money. You threw me out pregnant. You used my resources to finance your affair. You mocked me publicly and questioned my mental health." Maya's voice was steady, factual. "Maybe you never hit me, Marcus, but you absolutely abused me." The silence that followed was profound. Patricia whispered something to Marcus, who nodded reluctantly. "We'll need time to consider your counteroffer," Patricia said finally. "This isn't what my client anticipated." "Take all the time you need," Richard replied. "But be aware that the longer this drags out, the more evidence we uncover about Mr. Harrison's business practices. Discovery has been very illuminating so far." After Marcus and his attorney left, Maya felt Julian's hand on her shoulder. You were amazing. Cold, composed, completely unshakable. I didn't feel unshakable, Maya admitted. I felt like I might throw up. But you didn't, Dante pointed out. You faced him down and held your ground. That's what matters. 2 days later, Patricia Rodriguez called Richard with a new offer. Marcus would accept all the terms of the settlement except the fraud prosecution. He'd plead guilty to a lesser charge, accept probation and community service, and pay full restitution plus punitive damages. The DA is on board, Richard reported. They're willing to accept the plea because it guarantees a conviction without the expense of a trial. The question is whether you're satisfied with that outcome. Maya thought about it carefully. Prison time would satisfy her anger, but probation and community service would still mark Marcus's record, still force him to face public consequences. I want 2 additions to the plea deal, she said finally. First, Marcus has to make a public statement taking full responsibility for his actions. No excuses, no justifications, just acknowledgement of what he did wrong. Second, as part of his community service, he works with organizations that help domestic violence survivors. That's actually brilliant, Richard said. It forces him to understand the impact of financial abuse while contributing to helping other victims. The plea deal was finalized in early January. Marcus stood in a courtroom and admitted to fraud, to forging Maya's signature, to stealing her retirement savings. He accepted 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and the requirement to make full restitution plus an additional $100,000 in punitive damages. Outside the courthouse, he read his public statement to assembled reporters. I take full responsibility for my actions. Violated my wife's trust, I stole from her, and I abandoned her when she needed me most. There's no excuse for what I did. I can only hope that by accepting the consequences and working to help other survivors of domestic abuse, I can begin to make amends for the harm I've caused. Maya watched the statement from Julian's office, her 8-month pregnant belly making it difficult to sit comfortably, but her heart finally feeling light. How do you feel? Amara asked, rubbing Maya's swollen feet. Like it's over, Maya said simply. Like I can finally move forward. You know he might actually learn something from the community service, Dante mused. Stranger things have happened. Or he'll just serve his time and go back to being exactly who he was, Isaiah countered. Either way, it's not Maya's problem anymore. No, Maya agreed, feeling her baby kick enthusiastically. It's not my problem anymore. Her son was born on a snowy February morning, arriving 3 weeks early, but healthy and perfect. Thomas Harrison, named for Maya's father, came into the world screaming his lungs out while his mother cried and his uncles waited anxiously in the hospital corridor. Marcus came to see him the next day, his supervised visit awkward and painful. He held Thomas carefully, tears streaming down his face as he looked at the son he'd almost lost the right to know. He's beautiful, Marcus whispered. Maya, he's so beautiful. He is, Maya agreed from her hospital bed, Amara sitting protectively beside her. I'm going to be better, Marcus said, still staring at Thomas. For him, I'm going to be the father he deserves. Actions, not words, Maya replied quietly. Show him through how you live your life, not what you promise. After Marcus left, Maya held her son and felt a profound sense of completion. She'd survived betrayal, fought back against abuse, and built a new life from the ruins of her marriage. She had brothers who protected her, a sister-in-law who loved her, and a baby who would grow up knowing his mother was strong enough to stand up for both of them. The Harrison brothers had helped her destroy Marcus's carefully constructed lies. But more importantly, they'd helped her build something better in their place. A life based on truth, dignity, and the understanding that some women don't just survive betrayal. They transform it into power. 6 months later, Maya sat in her apartment's nursery, watching Thomas sleep in the expensive crib his uncles had bought. Outside, Chicago summer blazed hot and bright, so different from the winter night when she'd stood in the rain with nowhere to go. Her phone buzzed. A message from Marcus requesting an additional visit with Thomas beyond his court-ordered schedule. Maya considered it for a moment, then typed back, "If you complete your community service hours for this month first." He'd been doing better, she'd admit that. The work with domestic violence organizations had affected him. Or at least he seemed more thoughtful, more careful with his words and actions. He'd never be the father Maya had once hoped for, but he was trying to be something better than the man who'd thrown her away. "Your daddy is learning," Maya whispered to Thomas, who made a small sound in his sleep. "Slowly, painfully, but he's learning. And you're going to learn from watching both of us. Me standing up for what's right, him accepting the consequences of what's wrong." Downstairs, she heard Amara's voice calling up. The whole family was coming for Sunday dinner, a tradition that had developed over the past months. Dante bringing his famous ribs, Julian handling dessert, Isaiah managing drinks, and Amara coordinating everything like the architect she was. Maya's family. Not the one she'd married into, but the one that had chosen to keep her when her husband had thrown her away. As she carried Thomas downstairs to join them, Maya thought about the woman she'd been 7 months ago. Broken, discarded, standing in the rain, with nowhere to go. That woman had been tested by fire and had emerged as steel. The Harrison brothers had helped destroy Marcus's empire of lies. But more importantly, they'd helped Maya build an empire of her own. One based on strength, dignity, and the absolute certainty that she deserved better than crumbs from a man who couldn't see her worth. And as Thomas gurgled happily in her arms, surrounded by uncles who adored him and an aunt who spoiled him shamelessly, Maya knew with perfect clarity that better was exactly what she'd found. Marcus Harrison had thrown away a queen to chase fool's gold. He'd spend the rest of his life regretting that choice. But Maya was too busy building her kingdom to care.